Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to City Light Strategic Planning Forum. My name is Sandra Ball, and I'm the manager of the Business Customer Services team. Seattle City Light is planning for the future, and we want to hear from you. Today, we're talking about how City Light is planning a decade as key evolving needs and support your long-term goals. Today, a little different than our usual format as it is designed to get feedback. We really want your input. I'd like to start by going over a few meeting logistics. The first is that this meeting is being recorded. We would love your participation, so please ask questions along the way by raising your hand, your virtual hand, or enter your questions into the chat. If we don't get to your question due to time constraints or if follow-up is needed, we will address your questions in the post-meeting email. Meeting email will include a survey with an opportunity for comments and suggestions on how to improve future forums. We will send the slides and a meeting recording. There's a call-in number on the meeting link. If you received and you have technical difficulties, please join us by phone. We'll enter that information in the chat shortly. And at this time, we would love for you to take a minute to please enter your name and organization into the chat so we can see who has joined us today. And with that, I will turn it over to Angela Bertrand, City Light's Strategic Reporting Advisor.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Let me just pull up my presentation. I'm so excited to see, we have 32 people right now. That's really exciting, so welcome. So like Sandra said, my name is Angela Bertrand, and I'm leading City Light strategic planning work, and I'll be facilitating today's discussion. I want to take a moment to just set the stage for why this conversation is so important and your input is crucial. As customers, your insights are essential as we plan for our future energy investments to ensure our services continue to meet your evolving needs. This year, we're coming to you really early in our planning efforts, so you have the opportunity to shape the path we take. That means that I have fewer answers for you and more questions. Because of that, I'd like today to be less of a presentation and more of a conversation. So please add comments in the chat or raise your hand throughout our time together. This won't be our only conversation. We'll be coming back and checking in throughout our strategic planning process. So I'm sure many, if not all of you, are familiar with City Light, but I want to briefly set the stage by sharing a little bit about who we are and how we serve your business and others across the region. City Light's a publicly owned utility, which means we do not answer to shareholders. Instead, our focus is on serving nearly 1 million people and tens of thousands of businesses across the greater Seattle area. We're proud to be the first large utility in the nation to achieve carbon neutrality and remain committed to environmental sustainability as we invest in the future of our grid and services. We understand that the power we deliver fuels job creation, innovation, and business growth across sectors. And we're here today because your input is vital as we plan for our energy future together. Before we can talk about our future electricity needs, it's important to ground ourselves in where we are today. Most of the electricity City Light delivers to your business comes from carbon-free hydroelectric power supported by other renewable sources like wind and solar. This provides a reliable, sustainable energy mix that keeps your operations running smoothly. We continue to offset carbon emissions to ensure the electricity we provide remains carbon neutral, a commitment that reflects not only the values of our region, but also many of the businesses we serve. As we plan for our future energy investments, we're carefully balancing key priorities such as the rising cost of energy and growing demand from transportation and building electrification, as well as city growth, and our shared goal of building clean, resilient energy future system for the future. There are four primary forces affecting how we plan for the future. Over the next 10 years, demand for electricity in our region is expected to double. This is driven by population growth, increased electrification of transportation and buildings, and the rise of energy intensive sectors like data centers and advanced manufacturing. For your business, this means that energy will become an even more critical resource, powering your operations, logistics, and digital infrastructure. City Light's planning ahead to make sure we can meet this growing demand reliably and affordably as possible. We're also preparing for more frequent climate-related disruptions like extreme heat, storms, and wildfires. These events can impact grid reliability and require new investments for resiliency and emergency response. At the same time, much of our infrastructure is aging and will require replacements or upgrades. And we need to continue to build a workforce that not only has the right skills and abilities to meet our needs today, but also our future energy needs. Meeting these challenges will require significant investment, innovation, and planning. And at City Light, we're committed to navigating these challenges with our business customers so we can make smart, forward-looking investments that support your success and keep our economy moving. With those forces in mind, share a little bit about how you expect your energy needs to increase or change over the next 5 to 10 years. Are you planning to expand operations, open new facilities, or add new equipment that would change your demand?
And Angela, while folks warm up to your question, there is a question in the chat and I'll read it. It's from Ian Brown. City Light used to have 91% renewables with 9% offsets. Looks like this is improved. Are all your non-renewables now just purchased power, or are you still buying offsets?
Still buying some offsets, but that has come down. Good question.
And would anyone like to come off mute and answer this question?
Watch and chat, so you can put it there as well. You know that many folks are looking for some data centers. We've seen a lot of increases for that. Yes, Bruce?
I almost hit leave instead of on mute. Yeah, so Bruce Kessler, Deputy Director of Wastewater Treatment Division. We are going to be building a new facility down in the Soto area. I think we've already made you aware of that, but it's going to be a fairly large facility. I couldn't tell you how much power, but it's probably going to run 12 to 20 times a year. So it's a wet weather station. So it's going to be very low power and then very high power. It's just going to kind of go through that cycle.
How has City Light helped you plan for that, or how would you like us to in the future?
Well, that's a good question. I definitely want our design team talking with you all through the whole process. We're currently, we're just putting together kind of it's a facility plan, which is more like a conceptual design and all. So we're probably a couple of years before we're ready to, maybe a year before we're ready to really talk to you about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Knowing that now will definitely help us be able to plan for that in the future.
Yep.
I know that there's also changes to the building efficiency standards. So some of you might be working along with that or getting new equipment. So that's a great example of having new facilities and planning ahead. Anyone else willing to share? I see Ian in chat talking about EV charging stations at schools and delivery vehicles. Another thing that we need to be helping you plan for. That both increases our load, but also moves it throughout the city. So we need to build up capacity in new areas. Okay. And thank you, Cam, for sharing the Waterfront Clean Energy Strategy. I look forward to reading that after the meeting. Okay. Thank you for sharing. If you have anything else, please keep adding it to the chat. As we plan to meet those changing needs, those new facilities, those EV chargers, the clean energy strategy, we need to think strategically about trade-offs, which is one of the reasons we wanted to bring you in today. Your input about how we think about these trade-offs is going to help us make a 10-year plan that works better for you as well as our other customers. So take a moment to consider the impact that both cost and reliability have on your operations. Think about how your business might respond to the following two scenarios. And then we're going to talk a little bit about which would be more beneficial or manageable for you. Okay, so in this first scenario, we're going to prioritize reliability. Here, City Light's going to invest in infrastructure upgrades to minimize outages and ensure uninterrupted service. Even during storms or high demand, the outcome's fewer power disruptions, but there are significant rate increases to cover these improvements. On the other hand, we're prioritizing affordability. Here, we focus on keeping rates as low as possible and limit major infrastructure investments. The outcome is a smaller rate increase, but a slightly higher risk of occasional service interruptions or slower outage response times. These are two really hard things, and we want to emphasize that this isn't like a switch either or. There's a huge spectrum, and so your answers here today are going to help us figure out where on that spectrum we land. And we're going to pop up a little poll that should show up on your screen here in a moment. If you had to choose, which one's more important to your business? Reliable power or affordable power? See somebody popped off mute. Oh, there's the poll. You've purposefully taken that middle option away. You can't say both, but you can say somewhat one side or the other. We got 7 responses in so far, and there's 44 people here, so we're going to wait a little bit more, but I'm seeing that most folks are leaning really strongly towards reliability, but we're seeing some response for we need that affordability. Does anyone want to come off mute and say why one or the other? Yeah, Ian?
Get my camera on here. So morning, everybody. So I don't know if my poll worked because I get an error, but I was voting for strongly prioritize affordability, but I wanted to add a little context to that. I think, for us in our business, affordability is key initially, but as we progress, with our full transformation to electrification, our shift will then, include as equal or if not more important reliability. So it's a kind of a snapshot in time for us that I'd pick affordability today, but long-term reliability is definitely important to us as well.
That's a really important context. Today, affordable, future reliable, and maybe knowing what you can plan for, it sounds like, coming out of that.
Yep. I mean, for us, the transition we're making, is something we're trying to keep costs affordable for our customers, just like Seattle City Light. But we have the ability to backstop, our steam production, with natural gas for the short term. But long term, that won't be the backstop. So that's when our mindset shift would be, more towards reliability. Of course, affordability is always important, but when you have, key customers, just like Seattle City Light does, you really have to maintain a reliable network. So
Definitely.
yeah, that's our perspective.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ian.
Mm-hmm.
I see Tyler.
Hi, yeah, this is Tyler. I'm with the King County Wastewater Treatment Division, and I guess with our infrastructure, there's negative implications to public health if there was a sewage discharge and also the environment. So that's why I chose strongly prioritizing reliability. And follow up to that is the utility reliability impacts our decisions on the customer side for you know, how much we've invested and what type of infrastructure we built up on our side for power reliability, and some of that's going to be in diesel generators and other power sources. So it has a pretty big impact. And I was curious if there's publicly available information on utility reliability, um, and if there's a link to it or if it's shared anywhere.
That's a great question. I don't have that at the moment today, but we can follow up and get that to you. Um, yeah, and I
Okay, thank you.
appreciate you drawing that line too. Like, you need that reliability for these other really important public health impacts, and so that cascade of impacts through our utility to yours definitely is clear. Thank you for sharing. See if we can get one more. We got 19 responses, so about half the room responded. And we had 68% said strongly prioritize reliability, and 26% said somewhat prioritize. We heard from somebody prior on affordability and reliability. Does somebody who's more in the middle want to share about how that balance is working for them? Thank you. Thank you for sharing that the poll's not working for you, Don. And I think someone else had that issue as well. Ian?
Just thinking about, Seattle City Lights prices, I feel like your demand costs are kind of, I mean, no one wants more expensive anything, but your demand costs seem really low right now. And I'm just wondering about Seattle City Lights forecasted revenue for expansion of that's going to be needed because of expansion of infrastructure, EV chargers, things like that, all electric buildings. So, I look at your forecast, but still, it seems like your demand is. I mean, I don't see any demand response plans anytime soon, and your demand costs actually just seem very low compared to places like California and other places in the nation.
Thank you for assuring that it feels like it's low. We agree, and we've heard that not everyone agrees with that. So we're trying to look at the different options, and that's part of why we're coming to you here today to look at what sort of trade-offs should we be making as we're looking at those increasing demand costs. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and move us on to the next one. We're going to look at two other trade-offs. So this one, we're looking at sustainability and affordability. Sustainability is an important value to City Light and many of our customers. We've heard that many of you have clean energy plans as well. We are really proud that we've achieved carbon neutrality, and thanks to reliable hydropower, we've been able to do that while keeping rates relatively low, to your point, Ian. But diversifying and expanding our portfolio to meet that additional demand requires increasing our power supply. So let's look at scenario A here, where we prioritize sustainability. We invest in clean, renewable energy like wind, solar, geothermal, and emissions reductions efforts. These investments help meet our long-term climate goals, appeal to environmentally conscious customers, and might align with your own sustainability goals. And they could raise energy costs in the near term. In scenario B, we prioritize affordability. Here, City Light focuses on keeping rates as low as possible, limiting major investments in renewable energy sources and infrastructure. This helps control rate increases, which might benefit more cost-sensitive operations or small businesses. If you had to choose, which is more important to your business, sustainable power or affordable power? Again, we know that these are all pretty hard trade-offs, and it's not an either-or situation. There's a spectrum of options, and knowing where those trade-offs are is helpful. Another poll should be popping up here in a moment. There it is. So if you had to choose, which is more important, strongly prioritize sustainability or strongly prioritize affordability? Yes, I see the question in chat around the Clean Energy Act. That definitely does limit our options. It does not eliminate them. And we are aware and tracking that as well. But it is a good point. Let's see, we have 18 responses coming in, and I'm seeing about half of you are saying you somewhat prioritize sustainability. This one's showing up more in the middle there. Does anyone want to speak to some of that being more in the middle? Yeah, Ian?
Again, poll wasn't working for me again, but I picked strongly prioritize sustainability, and I think someone already alluded to this in the chat. But with both the Clean Energy Transformation Act, but also Climate Commitment Act, and then other local regulations like the BEPS ordinance, there are already a lot of good forcing mechanisms that make sustainable power more affordable, and so we're aligned with those regulations, and so I think it isn't a trade-off in this case that choosing sustainable energy in the long run does achieve affordability. So I think it's less of a trade-off than maybe it appears on the surface.
I think you said there in the long term, and I think that's the key there. A lot of the more renewable energy resources would require getting them built, and building things, as I think all of you are familiar with, does
Yeah, I
cost
think
much more in the short term. So it's a
sure.
trade-off. We heard that the affordability is important sooner rather than later, and this would definitely be a more short-term cost.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, yes, Lucian.
Hi, yeah, I'm Lucian Go with the Port of Seattle. I chose strongly prioritize sustainability because, I work in the sustainability team here, and we have strong decarbonization goals of reaching zero emissions, and at ports and at other, I'm sure in other sectors as well, like a lot of the biggest energy using equipment are not current, like electricity. They don't all have alternative fuels or other options other than electrification. So I think that the sustainability of SCL's energy mix is really critical to us being able to achieve those goals, because we're electrifying as many things as possible and we don't have other options to pursue. So I think the fact that SCL's energy mix is zero emissions or near zero emissions is really critical to us being able to achieve those goals.
Focus on areas that you have more of that control. If you know that this area you've influenced and is good to go. So thank you for that. That's helpful. Let's see, I see Robert in chat saying that sometimes sustainability options in this region can conflict with reliability requirements. And that is, it's almost like I planted you here in the audience. This is the final trade-off we'll be looking at today, and then we'll get into some of our focus areas. But here we are, our first scenario, we're prioritizing sustainability, somewhat like you just heard. We're investing in clean, renewable energy like wind and solar and emission reduction efforts. These help us meet our long-term climate goals and appeal to our environmentally conscious customers. Sounds like many of you are in the room, and aligns with business sustainability goals. And you might need to plan for some variable power availability. Solar power comes when the sun shines, and wind power comes when the wind blows, and that's not all the time. There's ways around it, and none of them are perfect. So looking at the other scenario here, we prioritize reliability. Here, City Light focuses on maintaining and upgrading the grid to minimize any risk of power disruptions, even if that means using some non-renewable energy sources. Flagging that we know about we tried to pick a far end hypothetical here. These investments mean you might have fewer outages, but you may not receive the long-term benefits of reducing carbon emissions. So if you had to choose which is more important to your business, sustainable, environmentally friendly power or reliable power. The last poll will be popping up here in a minute, but take the time to think about which will impact your business more. Okay. We've gotten 12 responses, 14, 15, and it's strongly leaning reliability. Anyone want to share a little bit about why reliability here? Yes, Ryan?
Yeah. Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I thought I would just speak up since Bowen has a little bit different goals. I think as far as we have a 100% renewable electricity goal by 2030. So just thought I'd speak a little bit to reliability and sustainability. Obviously, they're both a priority for us. We can't build planes if we don't have electricity. So that doesn't make sense. But with our 100% renewable electricity goal, it's different than the carbon-free or carbon neutral. So we have to take that into an account, and most likely that looks like bringing on new renewable resources, especially in that region, like you said. And sometimes it doesn't seem like it makes sense because there's so much hydro. But as we look at it, like depending on what's considered renewable by greenhouse gas accounting standards and other standards, especially on a global level, yeah, I think that we can maybe work on both of those. Like you said, if there's a need, in the future, we're knowing that, hey, there's going to be a lack of electricity available as we all try to electrify. I think our desire is to bring on some additional renewables in the region. So we can maybe work on both of those.
Yeah, definitely. We're looking at options for that one, that's for sure. Good to know that that's in alignment with what you're doing over at Boeing. Anyone else want to go ahead, Jeremy?
Hi, can you hear me?
Good morning.
Morning. Yeah, this is Jeremy from the University of Washington. Obviously these are hard. You made these hard decisions on purpose, but in a lot of ways, I feel like there's a balance here in a lot of this, and if we work together correctly, because there's things that we can do as we do our transition from, to electrification of our campus. There's things we can do that I think could help both sides on reliability and affordability, and if we can partner together. And things I'm thinking of are like if we build in thermal storage into our system, that helps a lot. I don't know. I don't have all the answers at the moment, but I feel like if we work together well, then we could maybe have a better balance in all of this. So
Yeah, definitely. We do want to build those partnerships. You'll see that little sneak preview for our future slide. I'm really leaning on building those relationships with University of Washington and many of you. Thank you for pointing that out. We're definitely thinking like that. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, so I run the data center down in Seattle at the Weston building. So selfishly more on the reliability side of the pole there. Sounds like the hydro power though is a great middle ground between sustainability and reliability. Curious, do you guys have a roadmap for knowing the limitations of the hydropower? Are we reaching that, call it max capacity, or how much more from those sources do you think is left to pull from?
Great question. We have been pulling from hydro, and like we shared earlier in the presentation, we have to double our load. At the same time, with the increasing frequency of droughts, we're getting less water. There's less runoff each year, so our hydro capacity is going down a little bit. There's not a 10-year roadmap or anything like that for that. And we are seeing that trend that with drought conditions, there's less water at the same time. We need more load. So trying to find how are we going to supplement and diversify so that we aren't reliant on one type of generation and the ups and downs that come with that, so we can kind of weather that storm a little bit more. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think somewhat. It sounds like definitely a hard problem to solve, right? But it's comforting knowing that the group's looking at it and it's a constant thought. So thank you.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit longer lookout this year specifically to look at issues like that and knowing we need a little bit more runway to plan for them. So we're coming at the early part of it to find where everyone else is landing on these trade-offs. And then this fall we'll continue shaping that into a plan and then check back in with you throughout as we get there.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Angela,
Okay.
there's a question in the chat.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Where would nuclear power fall in this discussion? And will adding power generation from this source be a future consideration at City Light?
Everything's on the table at this point. We're looking at all of our options where nuclear comes up. There's no decisions. We're trying to weigh pros and cons of all of them at this point. So it's a consideration. No decisions have been made. Okay. Any other thoughts on any of these trade-offs before we move on? Thank you. I know that those are hard decisions, and it was helpful to hear how you guys are thinking about that, knowing that some things are better in the short term versus the long term, and specifically why you're valuing one over the other was really valuable. Now, as we're developing this 10-year roadmap, I want to share the 6 focus areas that our leadership team has identified that will guide how we invest in the future and deliver electricity to our customers. We're looking at focusing on reliability, power supply, customer experience, our workforce, technology, and sustainability. We recognize all of these areas are important, and we know we can't invest equally in all of them. That's where those trade-offs we just talked about come in. This means that we're prioritizing goals that sometimes compete, like cost and reliability, and then supply and sustainability. Understanding how an investment in one area might limit or support another, and then listening really closely to your priorities to help guide our decisions. You will notice that affordability is not listed as a separate focus area. That's because it's a key consideration in everything we do. Every investment we consider has to make financial sense for you and our other customers. So as we're looking at power supply and making decisions on whether to build new generation capacity or continue purchasing power from external markets, directly affects how much customers pay on their monthly bills and how reliably we can meet growing demand. Investing in sustainable energy sources like wind and solar might have initial cost implications like we talked about, but like you said, long-term leads to greater savings and price stability. Enhancing grid reliability and upgrading our aging infrastructure ensures dependable service, but has to be balanced with what customers can reasonably afford. Those infrastructure investments can get very expensive, as you might be aware of. In short, we're focused on really making thoughtful, balanced investments that support a strong energy future without placing an undue burden on businesses like yours. Today, we're going to focus on only 3 of these. We only have limited time together, so we picked 3 that have consistently surfaced in recent conversations with community members, business customers, and ratepayers. These are also the areas where we anticipate needing to make the most tough decisions to balance costs, service, and long-term benefits for people and businesses we serve. We're looking at reliability, delivering exceptional electric service that minimizes outages, power supply, securing energy sources to meet demand, and sustainability, providing equitable clean energy services that support a healthy environment, economic opportunity, and resilient communities both today and in the future. We'll look at those 3 each more closely, starting with power supply. We know that uninterrupted, dependable electricity is essential to your operations. That's why maintaining and upgrading our power supply infrastructure is a top priority. From maintaining existing generation assets to accessing transmission to deliver power to our grid, we're focused on delivering consistent power, especially as our energy needs grow. We're also trying to optimize how we buy and produce power to manage costs. As markets shift, we're looking for smarter ways to manage our energy portfolio. By diversifying resource types and optimizing the utilities resource and transmission portfolio, we aim to reduce volatility and keep rates competitive, helping your business better plan and manage long-term energy expenses. We're exploring cleaner, smarter, and more resilient energy solutions. Investments in renewable energy, distributed generation, and energy storage will help us build a power supply portfolio that's not only cleaner, but also more adaptable to your operational needs, including reducing outages, increasing flexibility, and supporting sustainability goals. We know that power supply planning is a shared investment and a shared opportunity. We're not making these decisions in a vacuum. What we decide impacts you. And your input helps us prioritize where to invest, whether that's in new generations, backup systems, or technologies that give you more control over your usage. Together, we can shape a system that works for your business and the community. Before I move on to the next one, any thoughts or comments on this one?
Yeah, hey Angela, it might be an unrelated question, but are you able to describe the relationship between, say, like a Seattle City Light and like a Puget Sound Energy? Just because I've heard groups out in like Redmond or Bellevue, struggling for power, and then you guys are completely separate, right, than them, or how does that all work and tie back to where the energy actually comes from?
I can give you the short answer, and then if you want more details, we can definitely follow up after. But we have different service territories. So City Light covers Seattle and a few surrounding areas. We go up to Lake Forest Park and down into Burien, so a little bit outside of the city. And then Puget Sound Energy has a much larger service territory. We manage the infrastructure within our service territories. And there's a shared market that we can purchase power from. City Light's lucky that we generate a lot of our own power. Not all utilities do. And so that external energy that gets sold on the market, we do share. And our load doubling is not unique. Most, if not all, utilities are seeing that same pressure. And so the power that is available on those shared markets is more and more needed by folks and driving those.
Kind of like a race then to gobble up the capacity. Okay.
Yeah, we're in a pretty good spot since we do have that hydro, and we are not left out of that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Is Seattle City Light looking at collaborative efforts with other utilities at being able to share costs for other future generation possibilities, where, not one utility's picking up the full load of the cost of doing something, but looking to, work more together with our surrounding partners?
Definitely. We are having those conversations. Yes. I'm not sure anyone's landed on a 100% answer, but yes, we are. Thank you. Any other comments on this one? These have been great questions. Thank you, and good ideas. Okay. The next focus area we'll chat about this morning is sustainability. What does sustainability and power mean? For us, it's about delivering equitable clean energy services that support health, economic opportunity, and resilience across all communities. It's not just about being green. It's about ensuring that the electricity that you rely on is dependable, affordable, responsibly sourced, so that businesses can thrive without adding long-term strain on our environment or our communities. In other words, it's about supplying clean, reliable energy in ways that don't compromise our ability to do so in the future. This framing intentionally covers 3 areas. Environmental stewardship, we're focused on reducing emissions and protecting natural ecosystems, creating a stable foundation for future power supply. Community well-being, equitable energy access and community resilience, powering businesses sustainably means ensuring that all communities benefit from the energy transition, especially those most affected by past energy practices. When we plan together, we can grow in a way that's inclusive. Next is resilient services. Here we're enabling our grid and operations to adapt and survive amid climate and other disruptions. This includes modernizing our grid, expanding climate vulnerability planning, and building up career pipelines for emerging technologies. A sustainable energy plan is also a strong business plan. And this one's come up a couple times in the conversation already. We know we can't do this work alone, so we're investing in partnerships across sectors. This includes industry, businesses, research institutions, community organizations, and more in order to support this work and push it forward together. This is us calling those other utilities and asking to collaborate on building generation. This is us working with University of Washington on trying to put some storage in, as including that in their projects. There's so much that can be put in this box, and we don't want to define it so much so that we can be nimble and adjust as new opportunities arise. But we know that this is based on good continuing relationships. Questions or comments on our sustainability focus area? Okay. The final focus area we'll chat about this morning is reliability. For businesses, power reliability means uninterrupted operations, whether it's retail, manufacturing, healthcare, or tech. Every minute of downtime can impact revenue, productivity, and safety. We're investing in improving the health of our assets, transformers, lines, and substations to prevent avoidable outages and ensure the system performs as expected every day. And not all outages are equal. We're seeing more and more major events like that bomb cyclone last November. Seems like forever ago. But those strain the grid differently. These weather-driven disruptions require different strategies, from grid hardening to emergency response. We're looking at how to better protect critical infrastructure and ensure fast restoration during these major events. We also know communication is a core part of reliability. For planned maintenance or unexpected events, timely and accurate information can help businesses plan, protect equipment, or adjust operations. We're evaluating our systems so that we know how we alert you, what we share, and how often, and make sure communication works for your needs, not just ours. Reliable power doesn't happen on accident. It requires a lot of planning, and we want your input to help us prioritize the right infrastructure investments and improve outage response protocols to ensure we're delivering the level of service that your operations depend on. Questions or comments on our reliability focus area? The rest of the presentation's more conversation. So this one, we want to understand, what does reliable power mean for your operations? Is that no outages? Is that stable voltage? Is that specifically quick recovery during storm events? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, hey, Angela, I guess I can speak on that. For us, being a data center, that's essentially the most important part of our business. We call it mission critical operations. So if we have an outage, then our backup generators would essentially have to kick on. So we're trying to ensure that reliability is always there, and that's essentially what we guarantee our customers as well. So we're always hoping that nothing goes wrong, and I think the downtown grid network has been built in a way that helps nothing go wrong. But yeah, that's definitely the most important part of our interest in the grid and the power situation.
I'm hearing no outages is most important to you. Does fluctuations impact your data center too much?
I mean, fluctuations meaning we go on needs from the customers. So I think we just draw from our allocation, and we're not really close to exceeding our allocation, given that we have to be tight on those numbers. So I think we're set there.
Very good. So you're looking for zero, no outages. Is everyone
You got
else on the mission critical absolutely no outages, or is it more like just needs to come back quickly? I saw somebody come off mute. Nicholas, did you have something to add? Or was it an accident?
Oh, no, I just thinking with my finger there. No, nothing to add.
Okay. Spiro?
Hey, thanks, Angela. I just want to reiterate for us over here at the Boeing company, mission critical is no outages. We're in a situation where we have to run multiple tests that could span over 7 to 10 days before certification for our defense contractors. And any blip means the test gets to start all over again.
Got it. So absolutely no outages is what I'm hearing. I'm going to go to Bruce, and then I see some questions in the chat. Go ahead, Bruce. Oh, I think you're still on mute. Your camera popped on, but it's still.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. Yeah, so for our wastewater system, no outages is really important. We do have generators somewhere, but West Point does not have it really doesn't have any backup. So a sustained power outages, especially when it's raining hard, could mean an overflow. So the other issue we have there is just power quality. So making sure that we don't stray too far from, nominal voltages, because that'll knock equipment offline as well. And of course, we want to protect the environment and our public health. So,
yeah, important work. Okay, so we're hearing that just fewer outages is the priority. Faster recovery is important, but ideally we don't even get to that point. I'm gonna jump over to chat. I see a question from Ian about wildfire prognostication, and Wesley went ahead and put a link in the chat to cover that one. So feel free to read up on that one. The short answer is yes, we are anticipating greater impacts, particularly as some of our dams are further afield and are impacted differently than the city is. And then I see a question from Tyler. Are there concerns about Department of Energy directed cuts to the BPA workforce, and is City Light seeing or anticipating any impact to reliability as a BPA power purchaser? And these are all things that we are talking about, and I do not have direct answers for you on any of them. And the cuts to BPA were things that we had many meetings about, and I don't see any impact to reliability at this point, but that doesn't mean none in the future. But it's definitely something we have our eye on. Okay. Great questions. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on. So here, for sustainability, what is important to you? How does our emissions reductions or sustainability targets a part of your business goals and strategy? And how is you and your business balancing energy costs and environmental impacts? You can drop that into chat or come off of mute. I do know the meeting's recorded, so some of you might not want to share that for that reason, but I'm so grateful for those of you that have already shared. Is there any, oh, yes, Bruce?
yes. So I'm not a sustainability expert, so I may get the language wrong. But at the county, we really try to be carbon free, carbon neutral. So we want our energy sources to be renewable. We don't want to be burning fossil fuels to generate that energy. That said, we also generate our own electricity and sell it to Seattle City Light using our biogas. So we look at sustainability two ways. How can we get that reliable, sustainable power, and and then how can we make use of our products to produce that power as well?
Yeah, good partnership. I like that you're looking at it both those ways, trying to help us and help you. I'm curious, looking out at the group, there's 40 of us here. How many of you have sustainability targets for your businesses? Seeing some thumbs. Okay. So most of you. What kinds of support would, oh yeah, Ian, I have another question, but let's see what you to add, Ian. Just a yes?
No, that was an accident. Trying to do a thumbs up.
Yeah, the Teams buttons. Sometimes we click the wrong ones. I've done it too. So what kinds of support would make it easier to make your operations more environmentally friendly and hit those sustainability goals? Do you need technical guidance, incentive, different rate options, early partnerships on planning? What would help you? The money. Anything else? Rate options and incentives? Great. What sort of incentives are you looking for?
Sorry,
they
Angela.
exist?
No, I had to wait for a second because I'm in the office and we might get some background noise today. Some of these incentives, we've had a great partnership with SEL. Previously, swapping out 22,000 light fixtures here at the developmental center, and that incentives that you gave us for that lighting program really helped us, move over the edge and reduce our footprint by about 10 million kilowatt hours per year. So any incentives, when you put it in front of the board, right, who gets the money first, really helps push a project through on our end.
Great. So any incentive. It's good to hear that in the past we've had good success with that. Thank you. I'm seeing a more affordable 100% renewable option like the PSC Green District. And then any talk of power purchase agreements? Yes. We're working on those regularly. Let's see. Cam, sharing about sustainability goals. We got greenhouse gas emissions reductions, particulate emission reductions, and air quality improvements, as well as energy efficiency, a lot of things. How can we help you reach those? Those seem ambitious.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what my colleague said, Lucian, about we're reliant for decarbonization on a clean grid. So it's probably the number one way that Seattle City Light can help. A bit of planning as well, on-site renewable energy storage, maybe more part of the question in the future, demand response, things like that.
So it's sounding like we need to have our house in order so that you can have your house in order. And that's a good message to take home.
Yeah, actually, Angela, that's great. This is Spiro. I'm sorry for cutting in, but yeah, part of the planning for the sustainabilities too is also the capacity, right? So do we have capacity to internally, move to other products in generation and such like that? So capacity is also a big play into the sustainability program. And of course, our CBA, right? Office of Sustainable Environment, the CCA, all those other reg-led stuff that are moving us in that direction.
Yeah. So we've talked about how the goal is reliability, zero interruptions. One of the options would be looking at variable power sources like wind and solar, which we talked about happen when the wind blows and the sun shines. And we can do some like geographic disbursement of that, so it happens in different areas. And that's a more variable power source. How willing would you and your business be to accept some of those variable power sources if we were able to communicate it in exchange for a lower environmental impact? This is looking at like ramping up the operations when it's sunny and ramping down when we don't have access to some of these more variable power sources. And again, we haven't decided on anything, so it's just gauging different concepts. No response, not an option. Okay. Well, you guys think on it, and if you think of anything, go ahead and share it with us when you come to it, and I'll move on to the next question. What types of upgrades or technologies are you exploring? Are you looking at solar, electric vehicle charging stations, or smart building systems? No, we've talked a little bit about charging stations. Boeing's looking at solar and EVs. Nice. Thank you guys all for sharing. This has been a great conversation, giving us lots of things to take home. Oh, lots of solar, lots of EVs. Wonderful. Difficult to ramp up down operations. Okay. Again, this is great to know, and we will definitely be taking this as we start to plan this fall.
Yeah, hey, Angela, one thing to add, I know the data center as a whole, the industry, I know we aren't specifically in the Northwest, but data centers, I'm sure folks have seen articles. They're really keen on looking at nuclear options. I know there's all sorts of issues or positives that come with that. And I think that's why one of the questions was asked earlier about the topic. Do you guys foresee like a Seattle City Light getting involved in something like that, or would that more come from a private industry? Any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, it's definitely up for consideration, and there are definitely barriers to that we are trying to navigate. It's all risk benefit, trying to figure out do the benefits outweigh the risks and the barriers of getting there.
Yeah.
So it's been discussed. One of the challenges is upfront cost. So it might need to be a partnership. And at this point, we're looking at all of our options.
Mm-hmm. Yep, hard problem to solve, but comforting to hear that you guys are thinking about it.
Has Seattle City Light reached out to Energy Northwest, based out of Richland, Washington, for more talks about nuclear possibilities? Before I came to WTD, I had 13 years in the nuclear power distribution system, working all across the country, and worked a lot out there at Columbia Generating Station. And I know Energy Northwest has a lot of collaborative efforts that they're doing out in the area, especially on the front of things like small modular reactors. I'll say I'm biased because of my experience with nuclear power, that even though it is expensive, it's still probably the best bang for your buck for carbon-free electricity. Has there been any talks about small modular reactors or anything like that you're aware of over here on the west side of the state?
We've definitely talked about small modular reactors, and we're still in the really early stages of planning. So I'm not sure all of the folks we've had these initial conversations with, and the plans are still getting developed. We can definitely check in with you more, and I appreciate you sharing that connection. I can make sure someone's chatting with them to make sure we're understanding the full scope of our options. And then I saw the chat, a few messages come in. Michael says it might help City Light to understand what plans customers have to increase AI usage within their organizations and associated power demands with AI platforms. That would definitely help. How many of you are looking to increase AI usage? You can do the thumbs again. That worked really well for the last question. Seems like it's more and more become just a part of life as Microsoft and everyone's pushing it to all of their platforms. Seems like a little indicator there. Is anyone not looking to increase their AI? So one thumb. Good question, Michael. I appreciate you putting that in the chat. Okay. Like we've talked about, sustainability, power supply and reliability, and affordability don't stand alone. all the investments we make in one area affects the others. We prioritize long-term sustainability by reducing carbon emissions. It might raise costs in the short term. If we focus just on affordability, we risk falling behind on reliability, which we've heard is very important, and missing our clean energy goals. Striking the right balance is critical, and your input's going to help us figure out what that right balance is for us. Now we want to ask, looking ahead to the next 10 years, so we're looking at 2035, which of these focus areas, reliability, power supply, and sustainability, should City Light prioritize when making investment and planning decisions? We've talked about how they're all really important. Many of you have services that cannot withstand any outages or without having health impacts. We've talked about how our load is doubling in hydropower, the water's decreasing, so we really do need that power supply. And then sustainability, we all know the regulatory requirements around that. And we need to support a healthy environment, economic opportunity, and resilient communities without compromising our ability to do that in the future. So which one, and the final hard question, should we prioritize? Appreciate you guys filling out the poll. Got almost 15 responses, and it looks like reliability is coming in at about a third of you. Power supply is really critical. Yeah. Without power supply, that impacts so many of these others. So
Yeah, that's what I was going to chime in. If you can't help create more generation, it's basic supply and demand. Your reliability is going to suffer if you don't have enough out there to meet the demand. So if you guys are expecting demand to double, then some type of generation to help with that power supply is what Seattle City Light is going to need, or reliability is not going to mean anything if you got a bunch of brownouts and stuff like that going on.
very astute. Thank you. Knowing that all of you also see that is helpful. Any other comments on what was hard about answering this one? Or was it just really easy and you saw power supply? Yeah. 66% of you said power supply. We have 1 vote for sustainability and 5 for reliability. So that seems like a clear answer. Thank you. Okay, so what have we heard today? We've heard that reliability is of the utmost importance to all of you. We need 0 outages for our data centers, for our wastewater treatment plants, to get our airplanes built. It's vital. And there's the recognition that we need to have more generation to support that. So it's a both and approach that also needs to meet those regulatory hurdles. I've heard that affordability is important, but only if we have these other elements. Is there any other key highlight that I should be taking home with me today? Go ahead and drop that in the chat to make sure it's heard loud and clear. I've heard that partnerships and talking to all of you early and often, as well as some of the partners we've recommended, to talk about how we can get through this energy transition together is also really important. So as we're taking that feedback and planning for the future, we're excited to collaborate with you. These are some of the opportunities that came to mind for us. Helping shape demand to strengthen the grid. We can collaborate on load shaping strategies. We're working on implementing demand response programs and time of use rates. This will help smooth out our peak energy demand. That's really important because we have to build for that highest amount, that peak. And this is going to help keep the grid stable and reduce strain during high usage periods, be that when everyone's getting home from work and school or the coldest days of the year. This can lower costs while improving reliability system-wide. We're also planning for electrification together as our region grows. Transitioning from fossil fuels to electric power is a key strategy for reducing carbon emissions and supporting a cleaner energy future. For businesses, this means new opportunities to modernize operations, reduce long-term costs, and meet sustainability goals. And planning together now ensures your infrastructure is ready and the grid can support transportation electrification without disruption. We can support energy conservation in our region. For example, we offer a number of energy efficiency programs to reduce your carbon footprint and meet your sustainability goals. We're also working on green jobs initiatives. We're committed to building a local skilled workforce for a clean energy future by partnering on green jobs initiatives such as workforce trainings, internships, and local hiring for sustainability projects. We can strengthen our economy and create pathways to high quality jobs and ensure businesses have access to talent needed to meet evolving and energy technology demands. We know, for example, that the number of folks available who know how to fix car chargers isn't quite where we need it to be to have the network we need. So how can we support building that workforce? And then we know we need to collaborate on long-term energy planning. It help us better understand your future growth and energy goals so that we can incorporate that into grid planning, rate design, and infrastructure investments. The more we align early, the better we can deliver on reliable and cost-effective services as your needs evolve. Is there anywhere else we can collaborate for success as we all plan for the future? I want to share a little bit about what's next. Thank you for this really rich discussion. I want to show how that's going to get used. So over the summer, we're doing some intensive outreach. You guys are actually our first stop on that tour. We wanted to make sure your voice was heard first and loudly. And then over the summer, we're targeting specific groups to engage with and determine the key places and communities to be present to gather valuable input. In the fall, we're going to share updates during the planning process, including going to the annual key accounts forum in the fall, where we'll give you an update on everything we heard today and how that translated into our planning. Then through the winter, we're going to take that outreach and develop a comprehensive 6-year plan based on accomplishing this 10-year vision we've shared with you today. We're going to begin working on that this fall, check in with you, and then continue working on it through the winter. Finally, in the late spring, the 6-year plan is going to go to City Council for review, reflecting both outreach insights and our strategic goals, and set the stage for implementation over the next 6 years. Before I leave, I want to ask you, who else should we be talking to about this strategic plan over the summer as we're doing this targeted outreach? Put those in the chat. We can definitely follow up with you or them to make sure we're hearing those voices. Thank you so much for having me this morning and for this really rich discussion. There's a lot of really good takeaways that I'm excited to share with the team and incorporate into our planning. Please share your feedback. We have a post-meeting survey up. Wesley also dropped it in the chat if the QR code is not the easiest. And we'd just love to hear how we can improve these. So thank you so much. If you have other questions, I can stick around for a couple minutes. And I really appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Angela. We do have about 20 minutes left on the meeting invite. So if anyone else has any burning questions or comments that they'd like to get in, we have some time. But this does conclude our meeting. Thank you for taking the time to share your feedback. And Angela and team will gather the information you shared today to consolidate the feedback, and I'll be sharing that out in the post-meeting email along with the slides, the meeting recording, the notes, and another opportunity to take the survey. But with that, I'll stop talking just to see if anyone else wants to jump in with any questions before we adjourn. I see a question about emergency planning. Does City Light emergency planning include disaster response planning for an event like a Cascadia subduction zone quake?
Yes, we are discussing that and working on plans for a big disaster like that. So our incident response team just got some new staff to continue those conversations. I also see a question about the operating budgets. And can we be confident in the rate path published in the strategic plan update in 2025 through 2030? For those rate paths, they get approved in 2-year increments. So that 2025 rate path you see published will be very accurate for 2025 and 2026. And then the 2027 strategic plan will provide an update. We include that 6-year outlook to try and provide some forecast. And in 2027, when that strategic plan comes out, that will have the firm number. And then will there be future tabletop discussions in regard to emergency planning? Toss that one to you, Sandra.
I was going to say, I can take that. We can certainly plan for that. And I would suggest you include that in the survey, because that's what we use to kind of guide and plan the future meetings. But noted here. So thank you.
See, Tyler would be interested in grid reliability data by serving substation if that's made available. Thank you so much for coming, Tyler. We'll make a note of that. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the meeting. Thank you, Angela, so much for the information that you shared today. And thank you all for your feedback and comments. Have a great day.
Thank you.